welcome to session 1 for C.S. Lewis in film and literature. You'll notice each session that we have a series of outcomes, and our assignments are based upon those ideas. How can we share these ideas, discuss them, write about them ourselves? So in this session 1, we are going to discuss our current understanding of Lewis. You'll find that everyone comes to this class with a different take on this. Some of us have read lots of Lewis, some of us have read nothing about Lewis, and all are welcome, and it's exciting to have all those different perspectives. I find that that's actually a big selling point, that some of us have all of these preconceived ideas because we've been reading Lewis, and then others are like, well, who? And so it's a great merging and meshing of all those different approaches and everything in the middle of interest and previous work reading him. And we want to identify why Lewis was resistant to Christianity for so long. He was a professed atheist, and how he finally became a Christian. And finally, we're going to begin to consider the prevailing popularity of Lewis, because we are talking about him. We have a whole course on him, and it does get full, which is exciting. Although this is found in several locations, I like to make sure you have the reading list just about any and everywhere. So we are looking at Mere Christianity, reading the introduction and foreword, and starting the first chapter. And then, of course, we are starting to explore Lewis's life. So we're going to look at his young adult life and then going sort of back from there. So 5, 6, 7, and 8. And of course, we have an article, and the article is a clickable link, but you also can go to the student lounge and download a PDF so that you have all of those options. So what are we doing here? In McGrath's biography, we're going to learn a lot about Lewis, and that's what we're going to say, let's get to know Lewis. And these are some of the ideas that McGrath is going to share. So McGrath looks at Lewis's conversion, that's specific to this particular session, and focuses on his voice and apologetics, which is within the Christian sphere. Our question for this time is, as you begin to explore Lewis this session, do so with the initial question posed in this class, kept at the forefront of your mind. Who was C.S. Lewis, and how did he choose to communicate a Christian message to the world? Because it's a really great question to explore and ask. Why do we do that? What kind of choices do we make that show or share those ideas? How is that worldview like our own or different? For me, as a medievalist myself, I don't feel that McGrath really processes or conveys the work of a medievalist, but at the same time, I don't think anyone really knows that unless you're in that area. To me, it's a really exciting field because you get to not just study literature, but you get to study languages, which are Old English and Middle English, and heading back into Old Norse, you get to look across to French. And some of the work that Lewis worked on, especially the Four Loves, are still things that people look at in modern medieval thought. So we are still looking at his work on Middle English and chivalry and ideas of romance. Our assignments this week are 2 discussion threads, which isn't usual. We typically only have 1 per week, but this time we have our Get to Know You link discussion thread, and we also have one where we're looking at Lewis himself. So there are 2 discussion threads to get into. And of course, we have our submitted assignment, which is Getting to Know Lewis. If you do want to have a template for approaching that one, head to the student lounge and look for the reading assignments and templates. And there is one for the first paper. That is just an addition. You do not need to use any of the templates I provide. I just want to help you out if you do want them. And this is the week where I really encourage you to sign up for your reading group, because you need to start planning what you're going to read and how much. Our 2 books are quite different from each other, and one is a bit longer. So what are we doing in this discussion of a true myth? I won't take your time by going over the Getting to Know You discussion, because obviously you know how to share about yourself, and I hope that you'll enjoy that and look for my video replies. But let's look at our first real discussion thread where we explore Lewis. McGrath spends a good deal of time talking about how Lewis became a Christian. He states, Lewis's writings of the early 1930s show him to have been searching for a fundamental principle of order in life. One of the reasons Lewis was drawn to the study of the literature of the Middle Ages was his sense that it witnessed to an understanding of the greater scheme of the things that had been lost in the West due to the trauma of the Great War. For Lewis, medieval culture offered an imaginative vision of a unified cosmic and world order. How did such a quest for understanding lead Lewis toward an understanding of faith and Christianity? I love this kind of question because medieval literature truly is a bit different from what we read today. There is an openness to exploring spirituality. There is a feeling that miracles absolutely do exist and are part of life. There are so many unknown things because science was much younger then. And so we have maps, the mappa mundi of the world, where it literally says there be dragons. We have people coming back from afar trying to explain what an elephant is, and people having absolutely no idea and trying to process this information from so far away of worlds they had never been a part of. And that leads to a tremendous openness and a willingness to let people explore faith in their own ways. Records are varied and they're often quite limited, so we get really intriguing snapshots, but we don't get a really full, big picture. This is the world of Beowulf, of legend and epic and myth. So I think that Lewis was indeed right, and that McGrath is right in describing that because it is such an open, exciting, imaginative world of faith. Getting to know him when we start writing about our short paper. We're looking at 2 to 3 pages. Most of the time, that's the shape of our essays in this course. We're looking for a couple of pages. Remember that our title page does not count as a page count, neither does our reference page. I like to describe page count as content. What pages have content on them? How much of that page are we filling with content? So we want to look at 2.5, 3 pages of content. So take that template or tackle it with an APA example of your own that you like. So in this first session, the intention behind these reading assignments is to give you a glimpse into the faith development of Lewis. And our request for this paper is to identify 3 things from your reading for this first session and discuss how it changes your understanding or impression of Lewis, as well as how it influences your subsequent understanding of his writings. Again, check out the information in the sample template writing so that you can see what an outline could look like and what possible thesis statements could look like. And here's my hidden question for the day. Is it good to know about an author as we read his or her work? Could this be both or either good and or bad? I find that that's a really open question and that it really depends on who the author is and what my understanding of their work is. So I hope that you will ask that question a couple of times this term as you get to know Lewis. And of course, preparation. You're going to need to choose between A Grief Observed or the Screwtape Letters. Check out that short video to gain some insight into which one to help you pick. And of course, if you want to have a chat with me as well about that, I am more than happy to meet with you and discuss ideas.